Welcome to Ty and That Guy. I'm Wes Chatham, and this is my good pal, Ty Franck.
Yeah, we're here to talk about season 1 of The Expanse, episode 4, which was a huge episode for us. It was our first big set piece episode of the show. It was directed by Jeff Olno and written by. This is the first episode that was actually has the name Narain Shankar on it. Although I will say that as the showrunner, Narain polishes and works on every script of every season, pretty much. This is the first one that had his name on it. So this is Narain's first big episode.
Before we go further, I want to talk a little bit about Jeff Olno, which is an interesting little trivia story. But his mentor and the person that spent time guiding him up was Norman Jewison. Do you know that? Yeah. The director of Heat of the Night, Moonstruck, a really phenomenal director.
No, I met Norman.
When?
So Bob Monroe, who was our visual effects supervisor in the first couple seasons, is part of a society of film in Toronto, and Norman is one of the founding members. And so Bob invited a bunch of us out to a party at Norman's house. So we went out to Norman's house, and we're at this party, this sort of like event for filmmakers in Toronto. And I got to meet Norman.
What season was this?
Huh?
What season was this?
I'm thinking it was season 2.
Can I send a big fuck you to Bob Monroe, because we're supposed to be buddies too, and I didn't get the invite. I didn't even hear anything about this, and I'd love to go. So
yeah, it was
that Bob Monroe.
No, actually, no, it was season 1, because it was Daniel and I and Ben Cook, and I think it was Georgia. I think the 4 of us were the ones who went with.
I think it had to, because he passed away not too long ago, so I think it had to be. But his son, Kevin Jewison, is a camera guy on our show,
and I think every season or 4 out of 5 seasons so far has been a camera guy.
At least 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
He might have been through the whole run. In the first season, I think he probably came on. He didn't come on for the full run, but he came on at some point.
Yeah, well, he came on because our viewers may not know this, so let's give them some background here. We're a 2-camera show, so in most scenes we're running 2 cameras. So you have an A camera operator and their team, and a B camera operator and their team. And in the first season, most of the first season, our A camera operator was a guy named Angelo, who is a very in-demand Steadicam operator who works in feature films. He's super busy all the time. He was our guy through most of the first season, and a guy named Jay was our B camera operator. When Angelo didn't come back for the second season, we moved Jay over to A camera, and then Kevin came in to run B camera. So that was sort of when Kevin came in, was after Ange left.
Yeah, and I mean, think about how much Jay has grown since that first season. He's an all-star now. He's kind of the new Angelo.
He is, yeah, and he again, like Angelo, he made his bones as a Steadicam operator. So he came in because he had Steadicam experience. But Jay, since then, now he's an expert with the Ronin, which is like a new type of camera technology. Yeah, so Jay has developed some skills working on our show that have made him even more in demand than he already was. We're lucky that Jay likes us, and he keeps coming back to the show, because he doesn't have to. Like, Jay could get like nonstop work if he wanted it.
Well, likes me. I mean, me and Jay got to be good buddies. I don't know how much he likes you, but in the beginning, I had a kid, he had a kid.
Yeah,
I had a kid, he had a kid. So then, I always say, like, let's go kid for kid. Well, he's outrun me now, because he just had another one.
Oh, does he have 3 now?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he just had another one. He's coming back. So
he just hates the idea of having any free time, I take it.
I know. I'm like, whoa, bro. At 2, I was like, I'm done. That's enough for me. But he's still rocking and rolling. And
so that's how Kevin got involved with the show. And so you were talking about Norman.
Yeah, and what's great is, I spend a lot of time talking to Kevin about his dad, and he loves talking about his dad. But his dad, the things that he was a part of, he gave Hal Ashby his start. I mean, he's mentored and so kind to so many people. And Hal Ashby edited in the Heat of the Night. They had this great relationship. Norman saw his talent, and then supported him and mentored him for how to become his own director, who turns out to be one of the great directors of the 70s.
Yeah.
So, it's just really cool to have this, this connection, this lineage to this legend and this massive storyteller.
Yeah.
And he was so great to so many people and lifted so many people up. So that was a nice little thing to talk about, Jeff.
Yeah. I what I didn't know in that story was that Jeff had worked with Norman. I didn't know that. And Jeff and I, of course, have hung out a lot, 5 seasons now or 6 seasons now of hanging out. And he never mentioned that. So, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, he was his mentor. He brought him on. And I don't know if it was film school. He met him when he was really young. And he kind of really, took Jeff under his wing and made Jeff the director that he is today.
Yeah.
Let's start with the Rossi. All right. So we're on the Donager. The Rossi crew is in the jail cell.
Well, there is no Rossi yet.
Oh yeah, you're right. It happens this episode.
Yeah. This is the crew of the former Canterbury.
Yeah, the night crew.
The night crew.
So we're in this little presence and we're trying to figure out what Holden is talking to the captain about.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting to me is being in the process of reading season 6 and then going back and watching these episodes and seeing how far we've came in relationships and since in that very beginning. It's really interesting to see, Naomi doesn't trust Steven doesn't really trust Naomi, and figuring out, like, us trying to figure each other out and see what each other's motives are. And Amos doesn't like anybody, and
he likes Naomi.
Besides Naomi. I mean, besides Naomi, there is a moment where when Kaz decides that he takes the sedative so he doesn't take as much air in the room or whatever, that you see him start to warm up to Kaz in the situation. But I think the group dynamic and how much we've grown in the kind of character development, that's the wonderful advantage to playing a character and being in a big ensemble cast like this for so long, that your personal life and your life on screen mimic each other, because we didn't know each other at the beginning, and then we come super close, and then you start to really understand your character and the motivation, and it just kind of clicks like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you could see it happening too. I mean, everybody seemed to get along fairly well early on, but once we got into the teeth of production and everybody was, it's like being in the trenches together. I mean, it's 12, 13-hour days. It's incredibly exhausting. It's really hard work. And, and in between takes, you're all sitting together, and just as an observer watching as the season went on. And by, the 4th episode now, like the chairs weren't just 5 people sitting looking at their phones or reading books. It suddenly became people talking to each other, and you guys were like playing games over there. And like, I mean, like I remember Dom and one of our ADs were doing a little dance off, and everybody was over there dancing. I mean, like you could see everybody sort of warming up and going, oh, okay, we can be friends now. Yeah, that was definitely happening at this point.
And also, we didn't know anybody in Toronto, so we were going to dinners with each other. We all we knew, and we hung out with each other.
Yeah.
And then Holden's on the bridge with Captain Yo, played by Gene Yoon, who's terrific in this part. This, like we said, being in Toronto and having access to these phenomenal actors, you get guest stars like her who, doesn't have a huge part, but it's such an impact. And you always remember her. When I go back and I think about that last image with her saying, what did she say? We weren't supposed to.
I didn't think we could lose.
I didn't think we could lose. And it was such a powerful thing, and such a wonderful actress. But she tells Holden that they're not the ones that destroyed the Canterbury, and Earth thinks they are. And they think it's an act of war. And so ultimately, the best thing that they're going to have to do is, whether it's true or not, we need to blame it on Naomi to change the narrative.
Yep.
And then cooler heads will prevail, and we can figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the, so you have this amazing scene because you got Steven, and then you've got Gene Yoon, and then you've got Greg Brick, all in the same scene together. So you've got these 3 great actors sort of playing off each other. Greg doing the pitch about, look, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. Let's just make it true right now. The cooler heads will prevail, and we'll figure it all out. And he seems so reasonable. He seems so like he's being so nice to Holden. He's being so reasonable with Holden. And it's such a classic interrogator tactic to try to build rapport, to try to like make it seem like you're the, he's playing good cop. Hey man, we're all on the same team here. Just admit you committed these crimes and we'll help you out. Like that's what's happening in that moment. What
he said made sense to me.
Well, but the best tactics do make sense.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like the best lies have to have some truth in them. The best tactics for getting somebody to do what you want includes some element of the truth. It has to.
So they start to get attacked by this mysterious ship that they don't know what it is. None of the drive signatures, they can't figure it out. Yeah. And what I love about the subtlety of this scene is the coffee that Captain Yo is drinking during, they're shooting torpedoes at her. And she's drinking her coffee, hanging out, and you see the confidence of this Martian and the superior technology and the Donager. And she says, I don't know who these people are, but they just signed their death warrant. There's no question in her mind. And for me, that paints that is how you show confidence, right? You don't, if somebody walks in the room and he's supposed to be king, you don't know it until people bow, and so it's that kind of that atmosphere of confidence within her just by her performance and drinking the coffee. And then you see how elite Mars is.
Right. Well, what it makes me think of is, so I watched a documentary a couple of weeks ago about the Navy destroyers that are patrolling the area where the Somali pirates have been operating. And one of the sequences is this guy who's a captain of one of the destroyers, and he's trying to capture or drive off this small boat of pirates. And he's like, all right, well, let's go over there, and we'll get next to them, and we'll fire some warning shots. And he's saying, and he's drinking his coffee, because I'm thinking, yeah, those guys in the pirate boat, yeah, they've got RPGs, yeah, they've got machine guns or whatever. Nothing they have is a big enough threat that the captain of a U.S. Navy destroyer stops drinking his coffee. Like he's not there going, oh, we better be careful. He's going,
I'm gonna put this shit down and like, let's do it. Yeah. That doesn't even.
No, he's very calmly talking to his guys. He's going, well, we'll do this, we'll do that. Like, and it's the same thing in her mind. That's the situation. Is here's some belters coming to save Naomi. I'm in the flagship of the Jupiter fleet for Mars, like a full-on fucking battleship. There's no reason for me to be worried about this. These guys are in a speedboat with some RPGs. I'm in a battleship. I'm going to be okay.
But what made me laugh out loud? And there was a frisky Martian guard on there. So when she said to have Holden, go to his seat, that Martian just checks Holden from behind. Did you remember that? And I was like, Jesus Christ, where'd that come from? And you see Holden, and I know Steven, and I know that had to rankle him, right? So then, if you go back and see, so whoever this extra was, he just keeps checking him, right? Checking him a thing. So there's another scene when Holden's standing up and they're having a conversation. That guy goes, they're going to take Holden somewhere, and he goes to check him again. Holden just elbows him, right in the helmet. This is like, you just picture that day where this guy's like, I'm a Martian, like that, like I'm a Martian, and I'm gonna fucking choke, I'm gonna yoke this guy, and like, this in character, not thinking about it, and then you see Steven like surprised in the scene in the moment, and it's kind of uncalled for. Like, where the fuck that come from? And then Steven was just steaming.
He was
waiting, and then he got him back. Boom, and he made it cut. And I love that shit.
But that's the thing. Probably a lot of people don't know about Steven is, he comes across as a really nice guy, and he actually is a really nice guy, and he's a very thoughtful guy. He's kind of an intellectual guy. Like he and I bonded on set talking about like philosophers and stuff. I mean, I think the first time we really got an in-depth conversation, we were comparing which translation of meditations we'd read, and like he's a super thoughtful guy.
Yeah.
But his mother was like a world champion, like martial artist, and he grew up in a house where, like, from the time he could walk, like everything was like martial arts training, right? So you don't want to mess with that guy. You don't want to fight with Steven.
He's also born and raised in the streets of New York, and Steven has when Steven now, like you said, I mean, he's intellectual, he's thoughtful, he's one of the kindest, most thoughtful, like in terms of a friend, you know, the gifts that he gives for your birthday. He's just a really thoughtful, nice, caring guy. But he has street in him.
Yeah.
And you know, I am way more there's moments where like that New York will come out in him, and there's certain times where there's people that kind of come within our group, and you know, and Steven's instincts are way faster to click on the who a person really is, just from his street life, and you know, and so sometimes if Steven doesn't like somebody, I listen to it because he's pretty accurate with his instincts.
Yeah, but I was just thinking, like, that guy shoved him around a few times, and then Steven waited. I'm betting that elbow to the head rattled him a little bit.
But you know, just knowing the dynamic, just watching it, know what's going on, and seeing him check and seeing the surprise in Steven's eyes, and it, you know, knowing that this guy is just wanting to do a good job, and it's just a choice. Like when she tells me to bring him, I'm just gonna fucking check him because that's probably what a Martian would do, and he did that, and then Steven was like, "This motherfucker," you know, like he's gonna get us. And so, you know, I always find that stuff's interesting.
Yeah.
But now we're getting to one of my favorite scenes of season 1 is Shed's head getting blown off.
Yeah.
The whole sequence.
So go ahead and tell me what you like, because I got a bunch of stories about the writing of that sequence.
Well, when you said would like you kind of groaned a little bit. Did you not? You don't love that scene?
No, I love the sequence.
Oh,
no,
okay.
I was saying because like there's so much behind that story. There's so much. We could spend half an hour just talking about how that all came to happen.
Well, the scene for me. So, you know, when you're an actor, and you know you're taking chances on things, and you're reading scripts, and you're, you know, and right when I read, you know, Ron, who was a guest on last episode.
Yeah.
You know, we were doing Hand to God, and we didn't know if that was going to continue or what was going to happen with that. And then I read the Expanse. And what's really interesting to me is when I read it, I immediately got a special feeling. And I knew about the books. I was at Comic-Con the year before, and I think it might have been Clint, our producer, that told me about the books first, but I don't remember exactly. But so I had this special feeling, and I knew it had this potential, right? And I knew it. And sometimes you know, and then I was, you know, excited to get the opportunity to be a part of this. But sometimes as an actor, you got to follow your instincts, because sometimes your team around you probably doesn't have the same, they don't know as in depth, or they don't believe that it has the same potential as you do. So sometimes you got to, you know, believe, just, you know, go on faith and say, no, I think there's something special here. And so, you know, you're always taking a chance. This business is always taking chances, and you don't really know how things are going to turn out.
Yeah.
Well, we jump on, we're in Toronto, we're doing this thing, we believe in it, we know this thing. The first time that I was like, yeah, this is it, this is the right thing, this is something special, was in this scene when we were shooting this scene. The whole sequence of just how the story played out.
Yeah.
You know, the storytelling of the scene, right? You didn't have a bullet come through and just explode his head. What you had is, hey, you know, I can calm you down. You have these sedatives that's already been established, and you know this is the thing. They already have this relationship because he calmed Kaz down when Kaz was thinking. So now you know, now he's calming Kaz down again. So he throws the sedative.
Yeah.
Boom. And it sucks the sedative back out. And then you go to the reactions.
Yeah.
Before, and then you see Amos suddenly concerned with Naomi, and Naomi seeing something. And so the horror on their face, you're like, what the fuck? And then you go and you see the headless Shed, and it has so much more weight. It's so much more powerful. And it's just a well-written, well-constructed scene.
Well, and some of that is definitely in the writing, because, you know, Narain is our showrunner. He's a very accomplished screenwriter. But some of that is Jeff too. I mean, the way he shot that scene to build that moment exactly like you're talking about, where you're seeing everybody's reaction before you see the event itself. That's Jeff. That's how he, you know, that's how he directed it. And then our editor who cut the scene together, such a masterful job of cutting that scene. I mean, it's a lot of hands in there to make it work like that. But it was one of those moments you go, oh, this is what the show can be. Like this is we could do this. We could keep making something that looks like this. And people talk about like the first couple episodes are a little uneven, and I don't disagree with that. But I think every show, the first couple episodes are uneven because the writers are figuring it out, the actors are still figuring it out. Who am I? What is my character like? Dialing that performance in. The directors don't have a good idea yet of what the look of the show is. There's a lot of that going on, but by the time we got to episode 4, we had our most experienced writer writing the screenplay. Jeff has been a director on every season of the show, and Jeff had his IMDb page is like 6 pages long. Mm-hmm. You guys were all getting much more dialed in to your characters. Like everybody really kind of had dialed in who they were, and it just all came together in that episode. I think episode 4 is our first great episode of the show, in my opinion.
And I agree with that. With every show you come on, it's so big. It's so many moving parts, especially something like The Expanse. If you go back and watch early Game of Thrones, you watch the first, they reshot the pilot, but you go.
I know. I was there.
What's that story?
Well, I mean, I was there when they shot the original pilot.
And so,
I was there when they reshot the pilot. So I'm one of the 7 people on Earth who has seen the original pilot. I've actually seen it.
And what do you think about it?
I understand why they reshot it.
What was missing that the series ultimately had?
Honestly, the thing that, because I don't want to badmouth anybody, so I'm definitely not.
Well, it's not about bad. I mean,
no. I will say that the thing that was clearly missing in the pilot that they reshot was a sense of grandeur. Mm-hmm. And Tim Van Patten, who shot the first 2 episodes when they reshot, Tim Van Patten is I personally think one of HBO's best episodic directors. Tim Van Patten is an astonishingly good director. He worked on Boardwalk Empire. He did a bunch of stuff on Game of Thrones. He's done a lot of stuff. Tim Van Patten has done a ton of stuff for HBO, and I think he's an amazing director. And the thing that Tim always does, and I'm saying Tim, I don't actually know him personally. I've never really met him, but the thing that he does is he brings a sense of cinema level grandeur and quality to episodic television. You watch the first episode of Game of Thrones, the reshoot that he did, it feels like a movie. It feels like you're watching a movie. Mm-hmm. And I will say that the pilot episode that they shot that never aired very much did not have that sense. Mm-hmm. And not have that sense of grandeur and of being big and of being cinematic, like in that same way.
But even with the new pilot, or if you watch it, you do see all the phenomenal ingredients that can make an amazing dish, but it takes a while to cook, and you see the actors kind of finding their parts and finding their roles. And then it starts to click and it starts really getting running towards the end of that season. Yeah. And I think that's, with a lot of great shows that has that kind of path and that way of, you think about Breaking Bad, you think about, Breaking Bad was phenomenal from the very beginning, and it's one of the greatest shows ever made.
Agreed.
But it starts to hit that high note, it just keeps getting better and better and better and better. And that's, to me, that's the mark of a great show, is that it just continues to get better. It just continues to grow. The game gets better and better and better. Yeah. Whereas a lot of shows, they might have a few strong seasons and they kind of, start to, being consistently good that's a hard thing to accomplish.
I agree with that. And I think the goal is always to have every season be better than the previous season. But within that, have every episode have something that you did better in that episode than you have done in the previous episodes. You're always trying to grow a little bit. You're always trying to get a little bit better. People talk about like, oh, the visual effects on the show are so much better now. They must spend so much more money on it. And that's not the case. Our budget has not grown dramatically over those early seasons. Of course, it's gone up a little bit every year because that's just how money works. But it, it's not like our budget doubled between one season and the next. The thing that has changed is we've all gotten better at it. Our visual effects crew, our internal visual effects crew has gotten better. The vendors that make our visual effects shots for us understand better what we want. They understand better the things that we like in a shot, and they're better at delivering them. everybody just gets better at their job. And if you're not, as a producer of television, as a creator, and even probably, I'm sure, as a performer, as an actor, if you're not trying to be a little bit better every time, every episode than you were the one before, then what are you doing? You know, I mean, at that point, you're just phoning it in, right?
Right. You know, the Expanse in this character is the one thing where I still get butterflies. I mean, we're going into Season 6 where I still feel, you know, like a sense of, you know, like, how are we going to do this? You know, like a sense of butterflies and nerves, whatever. And that's when you know you're doing the right thing, that you know, that it scares you a little bit.
Well, and I sincerely hope Season 6 is the one where you finally get good.
Who knows? I mean, shit, I better. It's our last one.
Yeah. This is your last shot.
This is my last shot. This is my last shot. And then, you know, so now, the captain realizes that Holden, that, you know, things are not going well with this battle with the other ship. And that
the big reveal is that they're not fighting just one ship. The big reveal is that they're actually fighting 6 ships. Because there's that moment where they see one drive signature and they're like, well, it's one Belter ship. We can handle that. And then we see the ships split. You know, they were actually flying deliberately to hide their numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And like Sand people do on Tatooine. And then, split apart to reveal that it's many ships.
And then they also have this advanced technology that even the Martians are having a hard time keeping up with and understanding.
Yeah.
And they're blowing the hell out of the Donager, and the captain realizes, like, things aren't going well. You need to get Holden, because he's the only one that can tell the story. He's the only one that can get Mars out of the crosshairs of Earth.
Yeah.
And so this Martian Marine crew gathers around Holden, but Holden basically makes a deal and says, you know, we got to go back to my crew, and they're going to confess with me, but I'm not going to do anything without my crew. And that's kind of, you know, Holden really starting to take that leadership, that heroic quality, and going there. But one of the things that I love about story, any genre, any horror, you know, you got to have a little bit of mystery. You have a little mystery. And I think The Expanse is at its strongest when there's a little bit of mystery there. And so when we start seeing this mysterious ship, 6 ships that are blowing up the Donager, and then we start seeing this elite soldiers that are in there that are invading, but they have this weird armor that we haven't seen before. Yeah. And Holden, he grabs Holden. He has this, like, you know, creepy kind of, and you know, I think too, like, I can tell that you're a fan of horror, that because there's a lot of horror techniques that are used in The Expanse to really intensify and increase. And I think that, you know, and you know, it's kind of a spooky scene when the guy's talking to him and he has the gun and he shoots and it doesn't work. And then Lopez comes and blows his head off. But
he blows his arm off.
Oh yeah. And then it coalesces back together. Yeah. But I love that. I mean, like, that's when the story really started pulling me in as I was watching it.
Yeah. And people have asked about that. This is a good chance to talk about that. People have asked about that. Like, when that season happened, people would ask, oh, is that because he's like a proto-molecule hybrid? Is that why the arm heals or whatever? That's actually not what's happening there. It's the armor is because they're in vacuum. So when his arm gets shot off, the armor like grows over the injury so that it doesn't let all the air out of his suit is what's happening there.
And it holds pressure on.
Yeah, hold the pressure in. Yeah. So yeah, when you said super advanced armor, yeah, that's part of it. Is this armor like self heals, so when you get hit, you don't just lose all the air out of your suit. Yeah.
And then back on the deck, so Holden finally gets back to his crew, and then back on the deck, you have that scene that I was talking about earlier, where she basically has to scuttle the ship. That they lost it, and she didn't think that they were going to lose it. And it's that, you know, moment where the captain's going to go down with the ship.
Well, let's not skip past it, because let's talk about that scene in the room where the railgun round comes through.
Yeah. Okay, let's do it.
Let's not skip past that.
All right, let's not get past.
So there's this. I mean, this is a peek. I want to give the listeners here a peek behind the scenes on how this stuff happens, because, you know, most people are not in a TV writer's room or in a TV production, so you don't get to see how this stuff happens. So in the book, there's a scene where that character Shed gets his head shot off by the railgun shot. So that, when we were breaking the season, Narain, our showrunner, kept saying, we're doing that scene. We're going to do that scene, because, there's 3 episodes before that, and you got Mark and Hawker right in the first 2. And so, there's a lot of adjustment going on. There's a lot of negotiation about what the season's going to look like. But Narain just kept insisting, look, I don't care what happens. By the time we get to episode 4, Shed gets his head shot off. And sure enough, when we got there, Narain wrote that episode and wrote that sequence and protected that sequence through the entire process. Because, of course, as you know, working in TV, there's many steps to this. So we write an outline, and then the studio gives notes on the outline, and the network gives notes on the outline. And then you write a script, and then the studio gives notes on the script, and the network gives notes on the script. And you do multiple iterations of the script, and they give notes at every stage. And then eventually you get to the shooting point, and then the director has their own notes of like things they think they can do and things they can't do. And budgetary things come up, you might write in script, like the ship does this amazing thing and then it explodes. And then somebody goes, well, we can't actually afford to make any of that. So we need a different version. And you wind up rewriting the script to match that. So there's so many things that can change a script in the process. And Narain fought for that moment through every step. And so many people are like, do we really need to do this? And Narain's like, yes, we really need to do it. And what's funny about it.
Now, do we really need to do like blow his head off, or do we need to do the round and the
all of the things like, all of this stuff? Like, is this too much? Is it too graphic? Do we need, like you get all of that stuff. And what's funny is watching that scene now on, if you go back and you watch that scene, if you read the script pages that Narain wrote on like his first draft of that script, it is exactly that scene. He managed to protect that scene through 4 months of people trying to fuck that scene up, and protected it and got exactly what he wanted. It's an amazing testament to what a good showrunner can do when they dig their heels in and insist on something.
Yeah,
he insisted on it, and that's what we want.
In TV, you got to pick your battles.
Yeah,
exactly. There's some things like that where it's like dear to his heart, and that's important to him, and that's the hill he'll die on. And by the way, that's the best scene of the whole season, and so he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was talking about.
Well, and the other thing that he said about that scene, and this is something we talked about when we talked about episode 2, is we were educating our audience on how space worked in The Expanse. Mm-hmm. That it's not Star Wars, it's not Star Trek, it's not any other space show. It is a unique version of how space works that is much closer to reality. And so like in episode 2, when running out of air on the night was a big deal and the radio not working was a big deal, and we spent time teaching people why those things are a big deal. In episode 4, when that railgun shot goes through, he's teaching the audience, these ships don't have shields. There's no magical fucking energy shield that stops bullets. Bullets just fucking go through your ship. And when they go through every deck. Because remember, one of the things that happens there is Naomi looks out the hole and she can see all of the decks beyond. And that hole goes through all of them. Mm-hmm. And when a hole goes all the way through your ship, the next thing that happens is all the air goes out of your ship. Mm-hmm. And so the survival thing isn't just a bullet might kill you. The survival thing is, even if the bullet doesn't kill you, the bullet has let space in. Mm-hmm. And you have to solve that problem. And then you have the great sequence with you and Dom, where you're putting flat things up against the holes and you're running the caulk around them so that the air stops going out. That was such an important moment for our audience to say, this shit is real. Mm-hmm. And getting shot in a spaceship is not like, oh no, shields are at 43%, which doesn't really mean anything. When your ship gets shot in The Expanse, it's fucking scary and you should be scared. Mm-hmm. And I think protecting that moment was so important in educating our audience about how our show works.
It educated me too. I mean, what I've learned about space and physics is from Star Wars. And when they blew a hole through the wall, I was like, well, isn't it going to suck us out? And then we have to hold on and like pull her.
Right.
Yeah. But so I guess we all learn. It's all a learning experience for all of us.
And there's one great Easter egg in there. So So Amos just tear because Amos is Amos. He just tears a piece of the wall. Like there's like a door sticking out of the wall. He just tears it off and puts it over the hole. Dom opens a little cabinet and there's a bunch of stuff in that cabinet, like emergency supplies in that cabinet. The thing that she pulls out is like a 3-ring binder to put over the thing.
Yeah.
The title on that 3-ring binder is MCR and Emergency Procedures. So the emergency procedure is you slap that binder over the hole so that all the air doesn't go out.
And I was like, wait a minute, is a binder gonna hold the suction coming through there? But
yeah.
Excellent. So we get to the captain when she scuttles the ship. It was a great moment. What are some of your favorite Captain Last Stands, I'm staying with the ship movies other than Armageddon? Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
Which that was a good one when Bruce Willis. Wait, we don't have to talk about Armageddon again.
I think you have more affection for Armageddon than I do.
No, you know what I like to poke fun at Armageddon.
I will say I freely admit that I haven't been a huge Star Trek fan in the recent era. Ever since J.J. Abrams took over Star Trek, I just sort of lost touch with what I liked about Star Trek, and I haven't really been a fan of it since then. But I will say this. The opening sequence where Kirk's father
Helmsworth
dies. Yeah, when Thor is piloting a starship and he makes the choice to get everybody off the ship and he's going to stay on so he can fight that last stand and damage the attacking ship enough that everybody can get away. That was incredibly affecting.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thought that was the single best sequence of that entire movie. Like once I saw that, I was like, this movie's going to be great. And then everything else after that was like less good.
No, I agree. And every now and then a scene like that is so good.
Yeah.
Because, Helmsworth, that was really his first big thing.
And he was great. And he was great in it.
He was great in it. And the scene was so good that his life changed forever after that. I mean, that single-handedly changed his whole career and his whole trajectory.
And it should. I love those kinds of stories because I'm a big believer that people should be rewarded for being good. Because, all the stories we hear, like terrible people who get rewarded over and over and over again. I like it when somebody's good and they get rewarded for that. And he should have been rewarded for that. He should have gotten a huge career out of that. Because he's fantastic. He's like the best thing in the movie. And he's in it for, 4 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's a dime piece, too.
I mean, I'd make out with him.
What's funny is I always say to my wife, like when watching movies or something, I'll be like, do you think that guy's good looking? Do you think that guy's handsome? Whatever. And she's always like, and I'm like, come on, you got to think somebody
fess up.
So one night she went to a party with one of her friends and they went to the party and Chris was there. Chris Hemsworth was there.
Oh, wow.
And she came home that night, late at night, and she was a little tipsy and she goes, Hey, you remember how you always want to know who? She goes, I know it. It's Chris Hemsworth. I was like, oh, okay. All right.
You wonder if maybe she made out with him at the party a little bit?
You know what? I don't blame her.
No, the one I always look for is when we're watching something, like my wife and I'll be watching something and I'll see a woman, I'll be like, oh, she's really good looking. If my wife goes, yeah, she is, I'm like, oh, I know she's good looking now because even my wife is admitting it.
Yeah.
Like the same thing with her when, because she's got a thing for like certain guys. She'll be like, oh, that guy's so good looking. And I'm just like, yeah, he is. Yeah, you're right. I can't lie. Is
it weird when she says that about Amos when she's sitting next to you?
Sorry, Wes, you're not her type. Yeah.
Then we have the amazing Shootout getting to the Rossi. And we finally get to see the Rossi, the Tachi.
Yeah, at that point, it's still the Tachi.
At that point, it's still the Tachi. And the whole shootout on the bridge with Lopez, with Steven using weightlessness to kick off the inertia of Naomi and bring her down. Amos gets shot in the leg. And again, you're right. This is the first great episode, and there's so many wonderful sequences, and this is one of my favorite sequences of the season.
It's pretty great. Again, educating our audience, because when Holden kicks off of Naomi to get back down to the bridge, that's teaching people like inertia matters. Zero gravity matters, and inertia matters in space, and all of those things that never seem to matter in other sci-fi shows. We're teaching people that stuff is still true. But I will say, as much as I love this sequence, because there's always things you wish you could get back. Like I'm sure as a performer, you watching like, oh God, I wish I could do that scene again, because I have a slightly different version that I would do, or I have a slightly different take on how I would do that moment. I'm sure that happens. And as a writer, we always have like, oh my God, I fucking hate that line. Why did I write that line? I suck so much. There's a moment in that sequence where the visual effects people screwed something up, and it bugs me every time I see it. It bugs me so much. And, I don't blame anybody. There was just confusion, and our vendors didn't know. And, the people in work on the show were still figuring it out. So I'm not mad at anybody in particular. I'm just, every time I see it, it annoys me. And that's when the guns come out for the Rossi, the PDCs, and they start firing. Instead of the PDCs spinning and the same barrel firing every time, which is how Gatling guns actually work, the barrel that's firing rotates around. And it drives me nuts. Every time I see it, I'm like, God damn it, I wish we would have fixed that. But unfortunately, it was one of those moments where by the time the finished effect was delivered, it was too late. Like we didn't have the budget to completely re-render all of those scenes. And it bugs me every time.
When I go back and watch that scene, I thought that Kaz hits the reactor and it blows up, and the afterburn blows out all the soldiers up that are shooting at him when he takes off. I was really wanting that moment. Does that happen somewhere else in the show?
No. And if that had happened, it would have just melted the whole back end of the Doniger, which, it's kind of a dick move.
Well, they're going down anyway.
I mean, that's still kind of a dick move.
Yeah, come on. I mean, you blow up all the guys that are shooting at you. I think that'd be really cool. To really see that. But yeah, it's great to see the Tachi and them getting in there and getting in the Rossi and seeing it for the first time. It's a really good moment. But to go back to, you talk about things that you wish you could take back. I always find it's hard, like to go. It's just like when you watch your like stuff or you watch stuff, it's just you're never gonna feel good. You're never gonna walk out being like, yeah, I got that one. You walk out being like, shit, man, can I re-enlist? Like, I gotta figure out something else to do. But this brings me to another topic that I think is fun. So this is a great escape scene, right? Yeah. What are your favorite escape scenes? Your top five escape scenes in a movie. And I have the correct list, but let's see if you can.
Well, I mean, Steve McQueen in The Great Escape.
Yeah. Well, no. Okay. So this is a difference. And I knew this was going to come up. The Great Escape is an escape movie.
No, but him taking off on that motorcycle.
On the motorcycle?
Yeah.
That's because there can be a great scene in an escape movie.
Yeah. Him taking off on that motorcycle is fucking great.
But the whole movie, like I have it listed because the next question was great escape movies because I was having a hard time, figuring out the difference. But The Great Escape is just a phenomenal escape movie. And then that scene,
McQueen on the motorcycle is the best. Is the best escape moment. Yeah. I mean, this is not going to be on your list because it's such a weird one, but Bruce Willis getting out of the rape dungeon in Pulp Fiction.
It's on my list.
Is it on your list? Oh, fuck man. Dude, this is why we're doing this show, because you and I are the same fucking person.
Yes. That's great that you said that, man. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. I love that. That's on my list. Yeah. And out of top 5, and you have it.
Wow. That's amazing. So I want to hear who else is on it. So who's your top?
So Leon in The Professional, when that whole escape at the end.
But he doesn't escape. He gets shot in the back.
No, but he escapes. He wins. He makes it. Then he gets shot in the back. But he makes it to the end.
Yeah, you're right. It is and it's a great sequence. Yeah,
it's phenomenal. Like him being in the doorway, and then him coming down, and the odds are against him every way, and then taking the plant and going down the chute and then doing the thing at the end in the reverse. And Gary Oldman, everyone, just
one of the great Gary Oldman performances.
It was just firing all cylinders. Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, that would definitely be on my list. Crawling through the shit tunnel.
So this one's a tie, but it's the same movie. So it kind of, it's the same. It's a sequel to the movie, so it's kind of the same thing. So I'll count both of these the same. But the greatest movie ever made, Raiders of the Lost Ark, when he steals the statue in the beginning, and the older.
Oh no, without question. Like that's not even top 5. That might just be number 1.
Yeah, well, that is. I mean, that's number 1. It's the number 1. That is number 1. Everything in my book.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about that sequence is it's so perfectly set up because you see everything he's going to have to deal with on his way out. It's set up. The light beam that causes the spike gate to come out, the pit in the floor, the things that you step on that shoot poison darts, all of that shit is set up. So when he starts running, all of that shit going off, like you knew that was what was going to go off. And then the little cream on top of that is then the ramp comes down and that boulder shows up.
With the betrayal of the other thing.
That toss me the whip. Yeah.
Toss me the whip and whatever. Like that is, man, that movie means so much to me. And
but here's the thing it's perfect storytelling because all the things I mentioned, like we see them go into the temple. We see him avoid all of the traps by being careful. And then we create the situation where he has to leave the temple without being careful because he doesn't have time. So now he has to face all of those traps that he snuck past the first time without being able to sneak. That's such a perfectly crafted sequence. Like, I don't know how you could do that better.
Yeah.
And then
you think they got him,
right.
and he's there and everybody's around.
Yeah.
And then when they look
only use Cocovitos.
And he looks the other way and then he takes off and then the plane and then the snake. I fucking hate snakes and all that. It's just phenomenal. Now, this is probably going to be a little bit controversial, and this isn't a new choice. It's parallel. It's parallel to the Lost Ark. But the Temple of Doom, the mining shaft.
The mine carts.
The mine carts. I mean, and by the way, I love Temple of Doom. Some people don't like it. I love it.
I love Temple of Doom too. My mom took me to see it opening day. She came and got me. I was in junior high. I get a call like, Ty, go to the office. I'm like, shit, what did I do now? Because I was always in trouble. So I go to the office. I walk in. My mom is there, and I'm like, oh man, I'm fucked, right? Like I did something. They called my mom. She's down here. I'm like suspended or something. And she goes, oh, she's talking to the secretary there. She's like, I'm taking Ty out of school for the afternoon. We have some personal things we have to do. And I was like, what is this? Like, I didn't even know. I was like, what's going on right now? Like, is my father dead? Did my sister die? Like I couldn't figure it out. We leave, we get in the car. She goes, yeah. So the second Indiana Jones movie came out. It's playing over at the theater. We're going to go see it. And I was like, fuck yeah. That's like the greatest mom moment ever.
What a special day. And for sure, I'm doing that for my kids if theaters ever open up again, because wow. I mean, that can make up for all my neglect from alcoholism and being out of town and and not spending time. No, I'm just kidding. But that's a phenomenal story. And yeah, so I mean,
my affection for that movie is very large. I love that. I understand all the things other people don't like about it. I get it. Doesn't matter. I love that movie.
I do too. I fucking love it. It's great. My dad took me to see it, and I remember watching it. And I really love Short Round.
Which, by the way, Short Round, like you look back on it now, that whole opening sequence and Short Round and the the Kali Ma like sort of cult and all that stuff. It's like I look back on it now and I cringe a little bit because
a
lot of that stuff is pretty racist. Like you're looking at it and you're going, I get why this is not okay anymore.
Yeah.
And I saw it when I was like 13 or whatever, or 14, whatever age I was. I didn't see any of that stuff. I just loved it. Now I look back on it, I'm like, it's probably not okay.
Well, see, and I got to be careful because some of these things, like if I'm going to go revisit Indiana Jones, I'm going Lost Ark, right? And I don't know the last time I saw Temple of Doom, and I remember loving it as a kid. So I don't know if I don't know if I've had adult eyes on it to really.
It's got some. I still love it because of the nostalgia of it and all that. It's got some cringy moments. It's got some moments you're going to cringe. Like, oh wow, yeah, that's the times have changed, dude. Yeah, that's not okay anymore.
Okay, now so you have to tell me which one you like better, which scene you like better. The getting to the clock tower and Back to the Future, or Tango and Cash escaping the prison?
I got to say Back to the Future.
Yeah.
I got to say Back to the Future because here's the thing is Tango and Cash, I saw it later in life, so I don't have the youthful affection for it that you do.
Uh-huh.
Like I was very aware of all the shit that didn't work about that movie when I watched it.
Right.
Whereas I'm sure you were exactly the right age to love that movie. By the way, we should at some point we should talk about Tango and Cash because of course that's the first movie our director Breck Eisner worked on.
Yeah. And I when we get to that place, maybe we'll have Breck on because he's got great stories. But I found this article that I sent. I might have sent it to you too about the behind the scenes Tango and Cash, but we got a lot to cover.
Yeah. Anyway,
I think you're 100% right. I think the getting to the clock tower, Back to the Future is another one of those movies that's up there in the atmosphere with Lost Ark. Now, Lost Ark is my everything, but Back to the Future is very close.
Well, here's the thing: is I agree. If I'm going to rewatch a movie, I'm probably going to rewatch Lost Ark more than Back to the Future. But I think there are a few movies. Not very many, but there are a few movies which are kind of perfect movies. Raiders of the Lost Ark is a perfect movie. Back to the Future, I think, is a perfect movie. Groundhog Day is a perfect movie. I mean, Alien, I think, is a perfect movie. I mean, and there's not very many.
But let me put this out there. Again, our producer Clint said this to me, and I really wish he didn't. I almost don't like him because he did. But he said that Indiana Jones, the movie would happen the way it happened, that Indiana Jones was not important to that movie in any way.
Well, that's true, but that's just true though.
I know.
Fact.
It drives me crazy because because when he said that, I was like, that's absurd. And then I thought about it and I thought about it and I thought about it and I was like, son of a bitch. We're going to just do a quick segue because I had to separate them because you got escape movies and you got escape scenes. Yeah. And now we have to go to escape movies, the great escape movies. And I think you and I are going to agree on.
Well, I mean, I think we already hit Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Is one of the great escape movies. Great Escape is one of the great escape movies. Let's see what are some, in some ways, Aliens is an escape movie because it's, you're trapped on the planet, finding a way, you got Bishop crawling through that tunnel to get to the place where he can like call in the other ships so they can come down. I think so. And you got the xenomorphs chasing them the whole way, trying to get out, crawling through the pipes. I would say Aliens, probably that escape is one of the great escapes. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. So,
bro, the greatest escape movie of all time.
What's that?
Escape from New York.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if I had thought about it for 2 more seconds, right. That one. Escape from New York is the greatest escape movie of all time. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell's masterwork. Kurt Russell's masterpiece. John Carpenter's masterpiece. Everybody in that movie is just
firing on all cylinders. You got the greatest premise in movie history. You got John Carpenter, who's a genius. I don't care what anybody says. And then you got Kurt Russell.
You got Kurt Russell in maybe his greatest role.
So
Nick Plissken is one of the great cinematic characters.
Yeah, I mean, we have to do a 3-part series show just on Escape from New York.
Yeah, dude, I'm down for it, man. I cannot talk enough about Escape from New York. For me is like, it's like Aliens, it's like Alien, it's like Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's in the pantheon of great cinema. That like if Escape from New York, like I don't have like TV anymore, but if back in the days when I had like like we were flipping channels, if you flip a channel and you land on Escape from New York, it doesn't matter where you are in the movie. You stay till the end.
It doesn't matter what your plans were after that. It's like, sorry, take we're staying in.
I hit escape from New York. We're 15 minutes in. I'm going to be here for another hour and 15 minutes. There's no way out of it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Escape from Alcatraz. I love that one.
You're talking about the Eastwood movie, right?
One.
Yeah, that's a fantastic movie.
That is that's Don Siegel, Escape from Alcatraz. Just so well done. Just a great movie. Cool Hand Luke, phenomenal.
Cool Hand Luke's not really an escape movie, though. Everybody gets killed.
Well, he's escaping the whole time. He's escaping, and then at the end, he does escape. And escape movies don't mean you get away with it. He escaped, but he didn't get away with it.
So here's where I would have a category disagreement with you. I think Cool Hand Luke is an amazing prison movie.
Yeah. Well, so
I don't know if it's the greatest escape movie.
Like Shawshank Redemption is more of a prison movie than an escape movie, right? But Cool Hand Luke, the whole movie, he's escaping, and that's the part of the movie is that he's outsmarting.
Yeah.
But it is, So I mean, we can argue on that, but it could be classified as an escape movie.
I mean, it's a great movie, so I'm not going to argue too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw a curveball at you. So obviously Die Hard. Die Hard's one of the great escape movies. Is basically trying, with that's one of the greats. But I'm going to throw a curveball at you and tell me what you think. Running Man.
No, that's not a curveball. That is, they drop him into the death prison, and the whole movie is he's trying to get out of the death prison.
And it's fantastic. It's just so good.
And so here's the thing: it is corny as hell, but it's my kind of corny. Like it just makes me happy watching it.
Yeah. But when you're 9 years old and you see it at 2:00 in the morning at your buddy's house,
it's so good.
There's nothing corny about it.
No. Yeah. He has got Sub-Zero now, just plain zero.
So now we're going to talk about Miller. Miller's looking for the body of a man that was on Julie Mao's dating page. What was his name? What was the guy's name? Is it Dizzy?
Oh, Bizi Bitico.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Miller's looking for Bizi Bitico.
Bizi Bitico.
Yeah. Which, by the way, there's an Easter egg, a Simpsons Easter egg in that. So when we get there, I'll tell you what that is.
Okay. So, we find him in the morgue. He gets the guy's ID and identity. And then he goes looking for him. And he ends up going to one of those slingshot parties.
That's right.
And where did the idea for that whole slingshot thing come about?
Well, that was a thing in the books. We had written about a subculture in the Belt Life where these young kids would build these cheap, like basically welded together from scrap ships, and then they would compete to see who could traverse certain bodies in the solar system, like going around Saturn and then going around Jupiter primarily using gravity assist from those planets. Slingshotting around the planets is where slingshotting comes from. So it's one of those clubs. It's and it gets in the idea is it gets to a point where people start betting on it. Somebody will say, I can slingshot around this and around here and wind up in this place, and I can do it in this amount of time. And then people will take bets to see if that's actually going to happen. Yeah.
And then he finds out that the identity of the man is not what he initially thought it was. So then he has to go back to the morgue.
Right. Because the Bizi Bitico that he thinks he's tracking who's dead is actually a stolen identity from a guy who's in one of the slingshot ships. And this is where the Easter egg comes in. So the guy whose actual name is Bizi Bitico dies in that sequence. He's killed trying to go around Jupiter and screws it up and dies. Bizi Bitico is, I forget which, is it Basque? It's a foreign language, but in that foreign language, Bizi Bitico means live forever. And that's from The Simpsons. In The Simpsons, there's a sequence where they're watching a movie and it's like these two detectives are talking, and one of the detectives like, I'm about to retire, and then my wife and I are going to go sail off on my boat. And he holds the picture of the boat up, and the name of the boat is the Live Forever. And then that cop is immediately murdered. So
what an in-depth Easter egg. Who the hell
right?
did get that one?
No one will get that.
Some of the Easter eggs you guys have in there, I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like,
Yeah, and
explain it to me, and I still don't understand it.
and naming a character who we meet and he immediately dies, live forever, just was very funny to us.
Yeah, that is funny. So Miller is in the morgue and he's with his ex-wife. He asked her to help him.
Yeah.
Who was a phenomenal actress did a really great job. We haven't mentioned her yet.
Yeah, Athena Karkanis, if I'm getting the last name pronunciation right, was with us for multiple episodes in the first season. Was great. Yeah.
And she was pregnant too at the time, right?
Yeah, I think she might have been, or she got pregnant shortly after we wrapped. But yeah, she had a kid shortly, not too long after we wrapped the first season.
Yeah, I remember something about that. But again, one of those great Toronto actresses. And
yeah, playing Octavia Muss, who in a tender scene later, Miller calls her Tavi, so that's apparently was her pet name when they were still together.
And then Miller does a deep dive into the guy's leg to find the memory crypt that he had in there, and it turns out this guy's a data broker.
Yeah.
And so and that's just another step in the mystery of what happened to Julie Mao. And this
another important connection to Julie Mao. Yeah.
That's all we had. That's all that happens with Miller. So then we'll jump into real quick to check in on Avasarala. At this point, she is now discovering and realizing that there's a new fleet of ships out there, and they don't know who that belongs to. Could you imagine how terrifying it would be to somebody's radar picking up a new fleet on the Pacific and not knowing who they belong to or who owns that fleet? That's a terrifying thing to think about.
Yeah. I mean, there were moments in World War II where planes would be flying, spotter planes would be flying, and suddenly you see an entire fleet where you didn't expect them to be. And that was terrifying enough. But at that point, we knew who they belonged to. Like a spotter plane would spot, be like, oh, there's 4 Japanese carriers there. It was still terrifying, but we kind of knew where it came from. If you were flying around in a spotter plane and you spotted like 5 aircraft carriers steaming toward the West Coast and you had no idea what country they belonged to, that would be even scarier.
And then we have that great image that I really love is with Avasarala laying on the roof, and staring up at the stars. I always find that's interesting because all the stuff that she's dealing with and the foreign affairs and everything it's all up there in the stars. So she, you would imagine that she would lay on the roof and contemplate what's happening and also the threat that's growing out there that pretty soon is going to be so dangerous for Earth. And the weight on her shoulders and what she has to carry.
And it's also a fantastic moment to show what an advantage it is. And I'm going to blow my own horn for a second. What an advantage it is to us in the writer's room writing the show to actually have a bunch of books to pull from. I mean, David and Dan had that same thing when they were working on Game of Thrones. They had all these books they could pull stuff forward from, because we're hinting at a moment in season 4 that we don't pay off until season 5. Excuse me. In episode 4 of season 1, we're hinting at a moment we don't pay off until season 5. There's no way to do that unless you've already got a roadmap. You've already got a plan and you know where it's all going. It's kind of amazing to me that we got to do the show long enough that all of those hints we put in the early seasons, we got to pay off. It's really unusual.
What's the payoff of the hint?
Marco hits Earth with a bunch of asteroids.
Oh yeah, and that brings me to my next note. Because you didn't say anything about the asteroid, because what she was on the roof, and what she was saying is that the fear of people that throw rocks.
Yeah,
and she was talking to her son about throwing.
No, that's her grandson.
Her grandson, sorry.
Yeah.
And so when I was watching, and I was like, oh Jesus Christ, like that is foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And that's what I have next in my notes. So I didn't, because when I was talking about the image and then you kind of brought it up, but we didn't talk about the rocks or whatever. Whenever you say you're tooting your horn, I zone out. So I didn't know what was coming.
Oh,
next.
Come on. You've tooted my horn before.
But so when she starts talking about rocks being thrown on Earth, I was like, wow, that kind of foreshadowing and that kind of building and hinting to things that happen way late, like that doesn't happen in like an original series. Like you have to have this framework and scaffolding of a story to be able to reference and make that connection.
There is one example of somebody who did that. There's one example of somebody who did that without having pre-existing material to work from. But it's very unusual. It's J. Michael Straczynski. When he did Babylon 5, he had a 5-year plan for that show. And he layered stuff in the first season that he paid off in seasons 4 and 5. But it's really unusual. It's really unusual.
He was going to get those seasons before he
started. He did not know. He was just betting on it. Because of that, Babylon 5 is remembered as a very unusual show because he was able to pull that off. He was able to do that. And very few shows have ever done that.
Well, are we done tooting your horn?
Yeah, let's stop tooting my horn. Let's start tooting Chad's horn.
All right. So this brings us, we can't let it go without talking about Fred Johnson, Chad Coleman, our friend Chad Coleman. This is when we first meet Fred Johnson for the first time, and he is doing business with the Mormon that he's building a ship for called the Nauvoo.
Yep.
And this is the first time we get to meet Chad.
Yeah, it's our introduction to him. I got to tell you, it was kind of a big moment for me. I may have been for you too, because I'm such a fan of The Wire. So when we were casting for this character and Chad, his name came up as one of the possibilities, I admit I got a little fanboyish. I got a little fanboy. And then, getting to meet him and hang out with him on set and work with him for several seasons, it made all that go away. Like, I'm no longer a fanboy, but no, that's not true. That's not true, Chad. We still love you. But yeah, it was cool, man. It was, and now we've gotten I think we've had 3 or 4 Wire actors on The Expanse, and it just makes me happy every time we get a new one.
I mean, for my money, I think The Wire is the greatest show ever made, and
for everyone's money, it's the greatest show ever made.
Yeah, that's probably the one show that's hands down the greatest show ever made. So I had the same experience. I still get the same experience, when talking to Chad or hanging out with him, that he's a part of something as wonderful and historic as that show is. But I got a great story about Chad. Should I tell it now or should I tell it in the?
Oh, you should tell it now.
Okay. Well, because there's going to be many more stories to tell about this. But in Chad has this presence and this power, and he's such a good actor, right? But as actors, we all, as I tell this story, I just want to put it out there that we all flub our lines. That's something that we do. I'm going to bring up many stories with me, Steven, Dom. We all flub our lines. It's just the nature of the business is what we do. So when I met Chad, again, as we're talking, we're such a big fan of The Wire, and we were doing this scene where he meets the Rossi and me and Holden for the first time, and we're standing outside of the Rossi, and they build this elaborate, beautiful set with this long hallway with all this white paneling, this looks like a parachute material that goes, and it's all lit up from the side, and it's all it's white and it's glowing. And the way this shot, as they're doing the master, how they're doing the master is the master is at an angle where you'll have Steven and I in the foreground, and then you're watching Chad walk down this long corridor. And I know why they did it, because he has such a presence. There's such a power, and there's such an intimidation, just to, how he is naturally. So, it's a great way to introduce Fred Johnson to the Rossi, but it's a long shot and it's a long setup and there's a long reset. And so, I'm standing there and Steven and I are there and we're getting ready, and there's going to be many stories from this, but I'm only going to tell one. And so Steven and I are ready, and then they say action. Chad comes around the corner. You see him come around the corner, and he's walking. I'm like, God damn, that's a beautiful man. And there's a presence and power coming off of him. And this is Fred Johnson, motherfucker. And he's walking down with that, that focus and that attention and everything. And he goes there, and there's all these marks he has to hit. He has to hit the right mark when he turns around the corner, because he has to be in focus, has to be in the shot, in the camera. He can't go too far on one side of the frame. And the whole way he's killing it. He does the right turn and the right. He's staying right in focus, right in the corner. And then he has to come all the way up and hit that mark for me and for Steven. And then the camera's right in between us, and he is focused on him when he gets in between us. It is a long drawn out process that takes a little bit of time. And so finally he hits all those pieces and goes in there and he hits that mark and he looks and he goes, Lieutenant Holder. And then it's dead silent and you hear the director go, he's a captain. I laughed my ass off. It was such a great, funny moment. And that really broke the ice with all of us and whatever. It was such a funny thing. Lieutenant Holder. He's captain. His name's Holden.
I think that was his first day shooting with us.
It was his first day. And he had
everybody's first day is rough.
Everybody's first day, and and he had like a 4-page monologue in that.
Right.
Day. And so, not really kind of like wrapping your head around this model. Like I know this, I understand it. Like, and what us as actors do is we find ways to, because there's a lot of pressure in that, and we've all been in that situation, all of us. And so we find ways to laugh at it and, and it's good stories for later. But Chad's a professional and he, jumped right on the horse and got it down. And that happens to all of us when we do that. But it was just it was just like the timing and the way that it all worked. And then just the director off in the darkness, he goes, he's a captain. His name's Holden. It was funny.
Well, at some point, we're gonna have to tell your story about forgetting you're on camera.
Yeah.
When we get to that episode, we'll tell that story.
Is that season 1 or?
That was season 1, man.
Okay. Yeah.
Season 1. You were still fucking around.
I wish we could, because they have that outtake on. Season 1 outtakes. That was funny. That was good.
All right. So did we get them all? Did we get everything?
Yeah, I think we got it all.
I think next episode should be a special. We'll get Jen on, and we could spend the whole episode just talking about her affection for Chris Hemsworth.
Did I tell you? I worked with his brother Liam.
Oh yeah.
And my sister is a massive Liam Hemsworth fan, and we happened to be working in Atlanta. And we're working in Atlanta, and me and Liam and a few of the guys, we went to a bar, like it's like after work, we went to a bar, we're hanging out. And I was like, this would be a great thrill for my sister. My sister lives in Atlanta. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna call Lori and say, hey, we're at this bar, come hang out and everything. And I know she's a big fan of Liam, and it'll be a big thrill for her. So I call her up. And she shows up. She comes visit. She's so excited, she gets to meet Liam. And by the way, Liam, like he runs with like 7 like Aussies that are all like look like supermodels, just beautiful guys, But so she kind of, I guess she got a little intimidated. So she shows up and I say, hey, Lori, this is Liam. Liam, this is Lori. And he goes, oh, nice to meet you. Hello. And she goes to shake her hand. She totally freezes. She doesn't even shake his hand. She goes like this. She goes, like the thoughts of words were coming to her head, right? But it was like, it wasn't making the way to, so she was like, and then he goes, well, all right. Yeah. Nice to meet you. Kind of patted her shoulder. Oh, no. I forgot about this. Okay. So she patted his shoulder. So he goes, oh, hey, I go, hey, Lori, this is Liam. And he goes, oh, hey, he's super nice. He's a great guy, super nice guy. And he's like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. And he went to shake her hand, and she didn't shake her hand. She didn't shake his hand. And she goes, and patted his shoulder. And then he kind of waited and was polite, and it was like his polite silence. And I was laughing. Then he goes, well, all right. Yeah. Nice to meet you. All right. Like kind of goes back to his friends, and she was mortified. She's like, I don't know what happened. She goes, he was just so gorgeous, like he's so tall. And
that happened to me once. That has happened to me once.
Liam?
One time.
You have a crush too? Was it Liam?
No, it wasn't. No, well, it was, but it was Liam McIntyre. But
I mean, I remember it, Ty, but I didn't know. I just thought you weren't feeling well. I didn't know that it was me in the, but
always you.
But now you've warmed up. We've gotten to be good friends, right? It doesn't affect you.
I like to think of us as more than friends. But I did have a moment. Because I don't freeze up around celebrities. It's not my thing. But I did have a moment one time where I turned around and was surprised to be very like 6 inches apart from a celebrity that I've always found quite attractive, and it literally vapor locked my brain. And what's funny about it, I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want to embarrass
Steven Seagal?
Yes, it was. What's funny about it is when it happened. So we were forced to be really like we were passing each other in a narrow space, so we had to be like 6 inches apart. And I'm kind of scooching past, and she's scooching past, and we stop because we're kind of being blocked, and we're looking at each other from like 6 inches apart. And she sees me vapor lock. She sees it happen, and it was so funny because she saw it happen, and she just gave me this smile, and she kind of tilted her head, and it was so sweet because it was like, I know what's happening. It's okay.
I know who it is. It's not, that doesn't even.
It's not a person like most people would even think about. It's an actress who's worked a lot, but she's never been like a big star. I just happen to have a very unique.
But I don't understand why you wouldn't tell us who it is.
I don't want to embarrass her or myself.
Kind of nice that you're saying about her. There's nothing but good things that's a good about it. Why can't you say what it is?
I'll tell you when we're not on the radio.
It makes the story way more interesting. If you're listening to it, you want to know who it is. Is it Jennifer Aniston?
No, it's not. No, that she would not have done that for me. I think the only Jennifer that would have vapor locked me is maybe Jennifer Connelly. Probably would have vapor locked me.
Was that her? Who it was?
No, it was not.
Who was it? I'll tell you who. My freezing up time.
All right, tell me.
You then when we get done, you say who it was, because the story is way more satisfying if you know who it was, and you're being nice to her. You're saying something like a compliment. But I was at an event one time. This is the hardest I've ever been. And I always heard stories, like kind of like you. I've always heard stories about Star Trek.
That's not a good start, dude. The hardest you've ever been.
And then when you hear who it is, it's like totally. It totally doesn't. I mean, it was. Yeah.
Did I just go full porno here? Is that what just happened?
Did I just say it was the hardest I've ever?
You did. Yeah. Hey, Clint, make sure to put an X rating on this one.
Hey, and what's funny is when you hear who it is, it's gonna make it all more funny. But anyway, so no. What I was saying is that I've always heard stories about people freezing up like that, and it just never made sense to me. I was like, wow, what? So I was at an event, and I am walking towards the door. So is it like a fancy event? People are dressed up and everything like that, and I'm walking towards the door, and I look up, and fucking Han Solo, Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford walks in the door. And he walks in my mind, I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to go say like, hello. Like I'm not going to mess. Like, I don't care about, space. And like, I will be a fool just to say hello to him. Like, this is Indiana Jones. And I walked to him and he turned around and he saw me, and it was fucking Indiana Jones looking at me. And I just stopped. And he kind of like looked for a second, like, oh, are you going to say? And I just stopped. And then he's like, maybe he just got, oh, it's all right. This is a kid of the 80s.
I'm sure that happens a lot.
Yeah. This kid of the 80s. And then he kind of just like mosey on or whatever. And then he left. And I was like, I could have said hello to Harrison Ford and I didn't do it. But it was childhood overload. I mean, the greatest, look, think about my favorite movies of all time. Indiana Jones. I love Star Wars. And Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you, I mean, the work that guy's done, like, how do you, so who was yours?
You're not even going to know her name. So there's
that makes it all the more interesting.
There is an actress named Melinda Clarke who is, she works constantly. She's been in a ton of stuff. If you watched Firefly, she was,
yes.
She was the madame in like the brothel in Firefly. She's like my type. She's like a redhead. She's got big green eyes. And I've just always had a thing for Melinda Clarke. I've always found her just sort of breathtakingly attractive in everything she's ever done. She was a recurring character in CSI. So Narain knows her. She and Narain have worked together.
Yeah.
And it was just that moment, because I think part of it was that it was so unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I'm scooching past people, and they're all. Where it happened was on the TV Guide yacht. I'm there with George. They're doing interviews for Game of Thrones. I'm just traveling with George. Every single person you're brushing past, yeah, that's Melinda.
Oh yeah.
Every single person I'm brushing past is a famous person. So it's not like, and I'm not a person who freaks out about that.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, here's a famous person. And I scooch over. Here's the next famous person. I scooch over, and she's right there. And we lock eyes for a second.
Right.
And she just kind of saw me vapor. Like, she just kind of did like a little tilt of the head and smiled at me. And like, it was like in that moment, she was forgiving me for it. She was like, I know, honey, I know what's happening to you right now. It's okay. It's happened to me before. Like, she totally was letting me off the hook. And it was just adorable. It was very nice.
So
I could not get a word out.
It's like my Angela Lansbury, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I totally.
Or B. Arthur. I know you're a big B. Arthur guy.
Oh, don't get me started about
me. Who isn't, right?
Yeah, for real. So what you're telling me is you're a massive OC fan? Is that what you're telling me?
Oh, I never saw the OC.
Oh.
Was she on it? Was she on that show? Okay.
She was a main character.
I've never seen it.
Well, this has been a fun tying that guy. It's been a naughty one.
Yeah, it's our X-rated episode. Please don't let your children listen to this one.
But thank you guys for coming to hang out with us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Please like and subscribe, and also we're gonna find a way soon to incorporate fan questions and fan interactions. So please be vocal and let us know if there's anything more you want to know about episode, or now that you know we're doing this, if there's episodes coming up and you have questions that you've always wondered about, please let us know. And thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, thanks, man.